Why do we feel it's necessary to yak about bullshit in order to be comfortable?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Welcome back to the channel, everyone. It's I, your reluctant gringo. We are south of the border once again. Well, that's because that's where I live. But wow, it's one hell of a Friday, because I was looking at all the news articles and everything, and not just from yesterday, but from also this morning. And to tell you the truth, I had a hard time deciding where do I begin with everything that's going on in the great land of the United States of America. And what those implications are for around the rest of the world. I had planned, I always have something planned. So normally, the main thing that I wanted to talk about was the tax. I even have notes here. I got all these notes here. Just the Medicare portion of the Republican tax bill to really kind of get into that, because there's a lot of, I don't know, some people say they're cutting it. Some people say they're not cutting it. It's all a matter of perspective. What's the truth? And so we're still going to get to that. But it just seems like, man, just the stories keep coming. And we have Trump versus Harvard, which is probably where we're going to start out with. We've got the Supreme Court extremely busy, because if you haven't been paying attention, they've been sending out writs and orders and opinions left and right. Some of them favorable, some of them not so favorable, depending on what side of the aisle you're on. We've got an activist judge in, I think it's Wisconsin, if I remember it correctly, that is... I don't think it's fair to really call it an activist judge. I just think it's a judge who's just probably doesn't belong in the role that she's in when we get to that article. I was even going to touch on some pop culture, because yesterday spent the day at the movie theater seeing a couple of new releases, and we're going to touch, and we'll touch on those later on. But what's always interesting whenever I go to the movie theaters is just seeing how much it costs me down here to see a movie versus what it usually costs up there. You guys, I always tell you guys are getting screwed on movie prices. It's amazing how you're getting screwed. So, but yeah, it looks like, I was trying to explain this. I was having a conversation yesterday. Why Harvard? Why would the Trump administration specifically go after Harvard? Well, when you want to pick a fight, you go after the biggest guy in the yard, right? In the United States, is there a name in higher education that holds more, I guess, weight to it than Harvard? I went to BU, so I was a stone's throw away from Harvard and MIT and all that, and that type of stuff. So there really isn't. So if you're gonna pick a fight, and Trump wants to pick a fight, he's gonna pick a fight with the biggest guy in the yard, and that's the biggest guy in the yard. So. At first, when I read the article, when I heard that what went on, I was sort of, I don't know, I was skeptical. I was like, is this really the right play? Then I remembered my own experience, and I'm going to couch this with my own experience when we get into the article. So let's get into it. Let me pull it up here, because it actually has been some developments as of this morning. Okay? So there we go. So initially what happened was the Trump administration, they've been withholding funds and canceling funds going to Harvard on the basis of millions, hundreds of millions, if not people can count into billions, because Harvard has failed under the view of the Trump administration to create a safe environment for the Jewish population that are students there. Lots of out of control protests, buildings getting taken over, students being intimidated, things like that. Now, fair enough. So we have about 7,000 students that are international students at Harvard University. It's about 25% of their student population. The Trump administration a few days ago asked Harvard to say, hey, we kind of want to know what these students have been up to, because they're guests in our country. So we'd like you to turn over their records, including the disciplinary records, any evidence of the disciplinary, where you have photos or video of them at these pro-Hamas or Gaza or Palestine, whichever kind of way you want to put it. at these types of protests? Have they been intimidating the Jewish students? Have they been practicing anti-Semitism, things like that? Chanting things like, by the way, I am an Arab. So as an Arab, when I tell you that chanting from the river to the sea is a genocidal chant, trust me, it's a genocidal chant. All right. From one Arab to all of you, anybody who tells you differently is bullshitting you, or they don't even have an idea what they're chanting. Okay, it's a genocidal chant, and if you're chanting that, it means you're actively lobbying for the genocide of a certain type of people. So, the Trump administration said, "Hey, along with the department, within the Department of Homeland Security and within elements of the State Department, we would like these records." Well, Harvard said, "No, we're not giving you these records. We're not giving you the paperwork. We're not giving you all the stuff that we have." Meanwhile, by the way, before we continue, in case you were wondering, the motto, Veritas, the Latin phrase, the motto of Harvard is truth. Just keep that in mind as we continue. So the school, which prides itself on the model of truth, is not turning over the records of these international students who are guests here in our country to the Trump administration, the executive branch that wants to review them to see if they are complying with their visa applications. And what do I mean by that? Well, I know this for a fact because I had to fill one out for a member of my family. They ask you specific questions in these visa applications. Specifically, are you or have you been a supporter of, in any way, of a terrorist organization that has been deemed a terrorist organization by the United States of America? Yes or no? Well, normally, if you want to get your visa, you would answer no. Anybody who answers yes, they're not getting their visa. Or have you ever been a participant or a member of these organizations? You answer yes or no. Well, just because you answer them during the time in which you get your visa doesn't mean you get a clean slate afterwards, that you just get to do whatever you want, right? If you're in this country, if you're in the United States, you don't get to be like, well, I answered the questions truthfully, now I'm going to change and I'm going to have this type of behavior. No, they can still, under the powers of the Secretary of State granted to him by Congress, right? So this isn't just a one-branch thing. It's a two-branch thing. Congress has granted the power to the Secretary of State and thereby transferring some of that power to the Department of Homeland Security to cancel visas whenever they feel like it. So the Trump administration said to Harvard, well, you're not going to give us the paperwork. You're not going to tell us what these 7,000 students have been up to, if any of them have been involved in illegal activity that could be concerned or considered a threat to the national security or just the safety of the student population of American citizens. Well, guess what? We're going to cancel. You got basically, I think they gave them 3 days. They said to Harvard, you have 3 days. All 7,000 international students can no longer be members of Harvard. They either have to transfer to another school or say bye-bye to their visas, and that's it. Because if you're not actively enrolled in a school with your student visa gets canceled. That's the law. That's the rule. I read it on this morning's website underneath the rules of visa. Well, of course, what happens? It's Boston. It's Harvard. You're going to find a judge that's going to block the order. And of course, Harvard has found a judge to block the order. So judge blocks Trump administration ban on Harvard accepting international students. Okay. Harvard is arguing that their constitutional rights have been taken away by this executive order. Here we go. Let me read this here. A U.S. federal judge on Friday blocked the government from revoking Harvard University's ability to enroll foreign students just hours after the elite college sued the Trump administration over its abrupt ban the day before on enrolling foreign students. Now, I may be wrong, but you really can't be a foreign student in this country if you don't have a foreign visa, a student visa. So if the Trump administration is going to say, hey, you can't, student visas don't apply at Harvard, that's their decision. The Secretary of State has extremely broad powers, like it or not. Again, like it or not, let me know if you like it. Let me know if you don't like it in the comment section. But like it or not, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, and his department, his organization, has extremely broad, almost unlimited powers to revoke whatever visa they want at any time for whatever reason they feel that they can. Again, this is power granted to the executive through the legislature, which is how it's supposed to work. So again, I'm not really sure what this judge is thinking. I mean, to file a lawsuit and get an injunction within an hour, it makes me go back to the Supreme Court case, which I was very concerned about, thinking, the Trump administration might have a point. They were talking about how these judges were making these snap judgments without a hearing, whatnot, just filing an injunction without hearing the case. But maybe they had a point. Maybe I jumped the gun too soon on that as well, And I think that, you get to Justice Alito and Justice Thomas, they might think the same thing. Anyways, U.S. District Judge Allison Burroughs in Boston. All right, listen, folks, I grew up in Boston. I grew up outside of Boston, in Boston. I worked there, went to school there. I don't think a conservative-leaning political judge exists in the sphere realm of Boston, let alone Massachusetts. You might be able to find one or two. I could be wrong. But Cambridge, Harvard is about as... Okay, Cambridge and Harvard make the liberalism in California look conservative. That's just... I'll just put it to you there. And yes, I am an expert at it because I grew up there. Okay? I can absolutely speak to that. So, this judge in Boston issued a temporary restraining order late on Friday morning, freezing the policy. So a U.S. district judge in Boston froze executive order policy, State Department policy on their own, basically giving Harvard a chance to keep these students enrolled. Now, meanwhile, the Trump administration has accused Columbia University of violating civil rights law, while overseas governments has expressed alarm at the administration's actions against Harvard as part of its latest assault on elite higher education in the U.S. Now, Columbia University is sort of capitulating. They're working with the Trump administration. They're saying, listen, we want our money. We want our funding. We also want to be able to enroll the students we want to enroll. We want to follow the rules. They're basically saying, we don't want a problem. Okay, well, you got one Ivy League school kind of doing one thing. You got another Ivy League school standing up and saying, we're going to do this. So it's going to be interesting to see if the Ivy League gets together and decides to have a united front. I don't think that's going to happen. Why? Way too much money involved. I mean, the amount of money, the hundreds of millions of dollars that these schools get from the U.S. government, it's too much money. Too much money for them to all say no. Okay, so with what they said, this is what Harvard said. It's immediate and devastating effect for Harvard and more than 7,000 visa holders. I'm not sure what immediate and devastating effect is. I didn't know trying to find a school to transfer to was an immediate and devastating effect. You're a guest here, and the immediate and devastating effect, I think, would be not allowing the Trump administration, the executive branch, the branch of the government that's entrusted with sort of, protecting us, not having evidence or not having information that they're looking for, needing at this point. It doesn't mean that all 7,000 of these students are going to be expelled or lose their visas. But if there are some that did assault, block, take away the civil rights of Jewish U.S. citizens, that's a fair question. I think it's a very fair question. And again, I'm the Arab in the room telling you this. I think it's an extremely fair question to ask and wonder, are these students here as visitors, as guests of our country, violating the civil rights of U.S. citizens who are students who are paying the same tuition to go to this elite university? Again, the motto of this university is truth, veritas. But it seems like truth is not really in play right now. They went on to say, with the stroke of a pen, the government has sought to erase a quarter of Harvard's student body. That's not what they did. They gave you a chance. They said, we want to see the records. You said no. They had no choice. You backed them into the corner. Okay. Have we not learned yet with President Trump? Has absolutely no one learned that you cannot back him into a corner and not expect him to do something that is going to be a little bit more drastic? We talk about, fight or flight mechanism. Trump does not have a flight mechanism. Trump is all fight. He's 100% fight. So this should have been expected, and I think it probably was. So with the stroke of a pen, the government has sought to erase a quarter of Harvard's student body, international students who contribute significantly to the university and its mission. And I'm sure a good majority of them do. We're looking for the ones that are practicing anti-Semitism against U.S. citizens. And, you know, a lot of people, I think, are too young to actually understand, or they just don't know the history. 60 million people died around the world fighting anti-Semitism back in the 1940s. We don't want it back. We don't want it back. We made enough sacrifice of blood, treasure, and everything else to get rid of anti-Semitism. All right? So Harvard said that. So the Trump White House called the lawsuit frivolous. But the court filing from the 389-year-old elite private university, the oldest and wealthiest in the U.S., said without its international students, Harvard is not Harvard. I don't know. Harvard was founded 389 years ago. It was Harvard then. It didn't have too many international students then. But okay. All right. So 6,800 foreign students from more than 100 countries. That's fine. And I'm sure out of the 6,800 foreign students, 99% of them have done nothing wrong and have nothing to worry about. If you give over the paper, hey, just say, hey, here's Johnny whoever. He's from the country of wherever. He's been a model student. He's cool. And the State Department's going to go, cool, enjoy studying in Harvard. But they want that 1% that blocked people from going to classes. They want that 1% that threatened them, that intimidated them, that made them feel as if they were in an unsafe environment or they had to be wary of their lives. That's what they're looking for. So this is going to go on. This is going to, as the word, we learn the appropriate word in the judicial process. This is going to percolate up from this district judge to a federal judge, and it's going to percolate from there to the Supreme Court, who's been extremely busy. Now, again, is this action by the Trump administration an extreme action? Yes. But is it any more extreme than a U.S. university that has received hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer money over the decades to say to the executive branch of the U.S. government, no, we're not going to tell you anything about the students that you've already allowed in with their visas to verify whether or not they're complying with those visa applications? What's more extreme? I would argue that that Harvard University saying no to these people, saying no, we're not going to create a safe environment. We're not going to help you with this. I think that's extreme. But again, everybody else might have their own opinion, and you're more than welcome to share it with me. So with that, we have to wait and see. Of course, I mean, it's the weekend, and I think Trump works the weekend. I think if you work for the Trump administration, there's no such thing as a day off. You might get a morning here or there where the commander-in-chief's playing golf on a Saturday or a Sunday, and you might be able to have a chance to say, okay, I have a couple hours to breathe. But I'm pretty sure there's going to be an emergency injunction or emergency request to either a federal appeals court or the Supreme Court themselves later in come the end of the weekend. So with that, let's see here. All right. So that's Harvard. That's Harvard. Again, I mean, you have to answer these questions. These are questions on every visa application. Why is Harvard special? I don't think they're special in that regard. I don't think they're special at all. I think I think everybody who comes here on a visa looking to do the right thing, looking for a better way of life, has to answer those same questions and then exhibit that same behavior as they continue working towards, if they're working towards a residency or their citizenship. They have to maintain that same behavior. They can't just come over here and be like, yeah, I lied on the visa application. Now I'm going to do whatever I want. It doesn't work that way. It shouldn't work that way, and it doesn't work that way. But either way, that is the Trump administration versus Harvard right now. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. Now, I told you that the Supreme Court has been very busy, extremely busy, and they're going to get busier. Let me just bring this up here. It's going to get busier. Man, oh man. All right, so we got opinions of the court and we got opinions of relating to orders. All right. So here we go. This one. We came this close, folks, this close to allowing taxpayer-funded religious schools, charter schools. And if you ask me this question as someone who did go to a religious school, I did go to a religious high school. So if you asked me this question a year ago, 2 years ago, I would have been like, I'm not so sure, separation church and state, taxpayer-funded money. I don't think we should be funding this type of stuff. If you asked me that 2 years ago, that's how I would have been. You ask me that now as I look at the state, and again, also I am a former certified teacher. So the education system is something near and dear to me. But if you ask me this now, with what's going on in public education, well, let me just say this. You have one group of people saying, well, these schools over here, they teach a specific doctrine. They teach religion. They teach Christianity. They teach certain tenets of that Christianity. So we shouldn't have that. We should not have that being funded with taxpayer money. That's fair enough. But yet, as somebody else, I'm looking at what public schools are doing over here, and they're saying, we're going to teach a certain doctrine with certain tenets that may conflict with religious values. Let's say all the gender identity stuff that they're teaching in public schools now, or is available in public schools. You see it all over the place. You see teachers tell you they're going to teach it. So isn't one doctrine just as dangerous as another? So we're already funding one doctrine over here. You can agree with that doctrine or disagree with it, but it's still a doctrine that not everybody agrees with. But yet the kids are getting that in a public funded school. And so shouldn't it be okay to say, well, we're going to fund the other doctrine over here as well? I mean, either we're going to have doctrines in school or we're not. Either we're going to say we're going to get rid of it all and just teach math, writing, and all that stuff that we're supposed to teach. But if we're going to include this over here, don't we have to include both? The Supreme Court came very close. It was a 4-4 decision. And this is it right here. This is the only decision they're saying under a 4-4 decision. They're siding because a tie goes to the state. All right. So they're deciding that taxpayer money can't go to these religious schools. It would have been a 5-4 decision in favor if Amy Coney Barrett did not recuse herself. Why did Justice Amy Coney Barrett say, I can't be a part of this case? I can't decide it? Because she used to represent, before she became a Supreme Court justice, she used to represent the plaintiffs. The charter schools, those groups. She used to, St. Isidore, she used to be a member of their legal team where she advised them. So she had some sort of connection to them. So in the interest of maintaining the credibility of the court, she recused herself. If she didn't recuse herself, this would have been a 5-4 decision, and Oklahoma would be allowed to send their tax dollars to a religious charter school. And again, if you asked me that 2 years ago, I said, no, you can't do that. But now I see that kids are getting indoctrinated with things that are, let's face it, it's almost religious in nature. It's you either believe it or you're deemed a sinner, hateful person. So shouldn't we give kids the choice? Why should tax dollars fund one doctrine and not the other? And 4 justices agreed. Yeah. This is okay. Now, they don't write that. They did not give an opinion, but you have to assume that's exactly what they were thinking, because the precedent of the Supreme Court has been forever and ever and ever, tax dollars should not go to religious schools. But all of a sudden, something has changed. And you have to think that the 4 and they won't even tell you who voted what. They're literally just, this is it. This one piece of paper is all you get. But we came that close, which means the next state that brings this up or the next organization that brings this up in this manner, they're probably going to win. They're probably going to win. And your tax dollars will go towards religious charter schools. And again, I'm okay with it now. I'm okay with it now because my tax dollars are going towards schools that are teaching things that I would never, as a teacher, I would never teach in my classroom because they're not part of education. They really aren't. I was, as part of teaching English or history or literature or constitutional history, I would never teach those things. I would never bring those things into my classroom. Ever. Nor would I allow them to be brought in unless they were under the guise of looking at history, looking at it from a contextual standpoint, not this is what it needs to be. This is how you should think. This is what you should be. And so activism is going to get, when you have activism in the United States, there's usually a response from the other side. And as a pendulum swings one way, as hard as it swings one way, it's going to swing back. And the Supreme Court came close to swinging it real far back. But that's not all they were up to. Here we go. Donald Trump getting a victory. Getting another victory in the Supreme Court. This is Donald J. Trump, President of the United States, versus Gwyn A. Wilcox. Who's Gwyn A. Wilcox? Someone the president fired. They worked in the executive branch. The president said, we're firing you. I don't want you here. So it was a 6-3 decision. Written by the Chief Justice, the decision in favor of President Trump. Right there, this application written by the Chief Justice, right there, baby. Now, the 3 liberal justices dissented. Let me get down because I want to do the dissent first, because I think it's really important that we figure out, okay, what were they thinking? And they had a basis for their dissent. They did. Let me just find it here. My eyes are going crazy here as I try to read this small print. All right. Okay, here we go. The majority's explanation of its action unfolds in 2 parts, neither rising to the occasion. Okay, basically they're saying our normal practice is to grant a stay pending blah, 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 blah. Here we go. The court, okay. So Rodriguez, so they had all these precedents they're citing, basically stating that federal employees are normally shielded by Congress in certain instances of being just summarily fired by the executive branch. Basically saying Congress created this job, they put in these rules saying the president just can't fire them. Okay. Well, yes, there's precedent for that. Humphreys, right? They keep mentioning this case from years and years and years ago, from 1958, taking away that right. Humphreys, executive versus the United States. Okay, that 90 years of precedence. All right, saying that the president doesn't have the authority to do this, the power to do this. Well, that's great. That's a court case, and that's precedent, and that's good. The Chief Justice and the other 6 judges said, we see your precedent of a court case, and we raise you the Constitution. And what do I mean by that? Right here. The application for stay presented to the Chief Justice and by him referred to the court is granted, basically favoring the president. Because the Constitution vests the executive power in the president. See Article 2, Section 1, Clause 1. He may remove without cause executive officers who exercise that power on his behalf, subject to the narrow exceptions recognized by our precedents. And they did not believe that the precedent that the 3 liberal justices were citing rose to that occasion. They do not believe that Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution is subject to a single court case. And I would agree with them. The president has the power to hire and fire whoever he wants. In most cases. Now, there's a wrinkle to this case, though. The Chief Justice was very careful on a lot of things here, specifically one. He shielded the one organization that President Trump would love to just fire everybody. The one organization in the entire U.S. government that President Trump just looks at and just makes him angry. And that would be the Federal Reserve. So yes, they granted him wide authority. Well, not granted him. They didn't grant him anything. They just confirmed that he has wide authority under Article 2. But they shielded the Federal Reserve. And he did that in his last two paragraphs, where he actually specifically mentions the Federal Reserve Board of Governors or other members of the Federal Open Market Committee are not for cause removal. They have protections. So they gave him a big win, although they did put a little bit of a restriction on him, which is important, I guess, for the Federal Reserve, because if they did not put that restriction on him, the next thing he would have done was fire the Federal Reserve Chairman. He would have been fired. He would have been fired 3:00 this morning the minute Trump got up and decided to brush his teeth. Really, that's what would have happened. So, again, very, very busy. And then here we go, Libby versus Fectow. This is an interesting case for Maine, and for all of those out there that just loves your free speech. This is your case right here. This is your case. So there was a representative in Maine, Laurel Libby, and she got up in the Maine legislature to speak, as representatives often do. And she argued against biological men competing in girls' sports. And she argued against that whole insanity. Well, what did the liberal legislature of Maine do? They censured her, which means she could not vote. She could not speak on the floor. She could not introduce bills. Basically, they took her power away, which was granted to her by the people who voted her into office, because she disagreed. And she was very eloquent when she spoke about this stuff. She just said, "This is my position." And she wasn't up there railing in a shitty way against anybody. She wasn't calling people names. She wasn't being a jerk about it. She just basically was saying, "This is what I believe. And this is how I believe that the legislature of Maine should act." Well, they sued. She said no. And the rest of the court agreed. The Supreme Court agreed. They basically told the state of Maine, her censure means nothing. You cannot do that. It's a violation of her rights. It's a violation of the rights of the people who voted her into office to give her an opinion. You have actually violated her civil rights. You've actually violated the rights of the Maine Constitution. You violated all sorts of things. So they said, hey, liberals in Maine, you're wrong, and you better make this right. And so they basically told her the censure means nothing. So she can talk all she wants. She can do all she wants. And she can have her opinion. So again, very busy, very, very busy Supreme Court. It's going to get busier. It's going to get busy. We're still waiting on them to give out their ruling on birthright citizenship. I'm amazed that hasn't come yet. I thought that would come quicker than it is, which makes me think there's some dissent in there. There's some people thinking, how do we word this? And how do we word this and protect the Constitution at the same time? So it'll be interesting. I thought you would get that already. But so the Supreme Court has just been firing out order after order since for the last week. I've never seen a May this busy with the Supreme Court. And I don't think they're going to be able to go on vacation. I don't think they're going to be able to recess for the summer or however long they recess for. There's just going to be way too much going on. So, but with that, okay. I know I've been wanting to talk about Medicare and the tax bill and the big, beautiful bill and get into that to see what it really says. But can we talk about two stupid things today? Let's talk about two stupid things today. All right. Here's stupid number one. We have a judge. Hey, there she is on video. She's now been charged. She could face up to 6 years in prison because what she did. So here's the basic story. In her courtroom, she had an illegal immigrant from Mexico. That illegal immigrant was there because he was being charged with battery, I believe domestic abuse or battery, either domestic abuse or just plain up battery. Well, you see in this hallway, we'll get the picture. See these dudes here? They're ICE agents because they have a retainer for the illegal immigrant that she is supposed to see in her courtroom. Well, she learns this fact and she doesn't like ICE. She doesn't like ICE. She doesn't like them. So she goes out there and tells the ICE agents that they don't have the proper warrant, that they need to go see Chief Justice someone so-and-so in the building and get a proper bench warrant to be able to take the illegal immigrant out of her courtroom and put him through his deportation process. And the ICE agents, being ICE agents, are like, well, okay, we don't want to, we want to follow the law. We want to do the right thing. So let's go do that. Turns out it was all a distraction. Because what did this judge do? This judge was basically saying to those ICE agents, go do this, to give her time so she could sneak our illegal immigrant who is there charged with battery, with the victims in the courtroom, by the way. The victims of this illegal immigrant were sitting in this judge's courtroom. And the judge decided, well, instead of justice for the victims who are battered or were the victims of a crime, instead of justice for them, she was going to escort this illegal immigrant personally with their lawyer out a private back exit to avoid ICE. Well, there's video evidence, there's testimony, and now this judge is going to have to go to court. And they're saying that the judge, now her defense is she's a judge. She has immunity. Since when the fuck did judges have immunity from the law? Like, really? Is that a thing now? Is that a thing we're going to argue? Immunity? I'm a judge, so I'm immune? No, you commit a crime, you commit a crime. You're less immune if you're a member of the court if you commit a crime. This judge should go to jail for 6 years, lose their pension. My opinion. If this is what happened, if this is the case, but this is what's being alleged. You have the video there. She's out there. I mean, that's her talking to these ICE agents. I'd like to know who this other judge is with her. I mean, the other judge didn't seem to do anything. All right. Maybe she's a material witness. Who knows? I don't know. But there she's talking to the ICE agents who were there trying to do their job. And they're like, okay, well, we'll go get yep, he gets up. Yep, okay, well, I'll go get the retainer. You're telling me I need this piece of paper to do my job? Then I go get this piece of paper to do my job. But it was all a ruse. There was no necessary piece of paper for them to get. Absolutely none. And there, right? Yeah, there we go. Yep, exiting the courthouse as attorney. Boom, right out, boom. So, yeah. I'm always one, and last week I was, we were talking about the Supreme Court case and judicial activism, and I was always the one that I don't want to interfere with the independence of a court. I don't want rules and regulations about the independence of a court being brought down. And again, maybe I just need to think new because I keep seeing this, and you see things like this and you have to think to yourself, maybe we need some rules and regulations on the court, because if a judge is going to make an active decision to side with an alleged criminal versus side with the duly deputized members of the law enforcement community, that's a problem. That's just a problem. You can not like ICE all you want. You can not like the Trump administration's law all you want. But doing something illegal is not the way to deal with it. Doing something illegal is it doesn't help your case. It doesn't help you. It doesn't make you look better. It doesn't make your side look better. It makes you look deceitful. I mean, if you're a judge, then let the ICE agents in and talk to them and say, hey, argue it. You're in a court. You got plenty of lawyers there. I'm sure you can find someone to argue it. Argue it. Make a case. But instead of doing that, she did this. So we'll see what happens. But that's what she faced. She's 65 years old. Let's see what happens. It's Wisconsin. We'll see. Again, not sure. All right. Oh, yeah. And for those of you who believe that these stories are all bullshit, these stories happen all the time. A Colombian woman charged with illegally voting in 2024 and stealing $400,000 in taxpayer-funded benefits. So we have Lina Maria Orovio Hernandez, hope I pronounced that correctly, allegedly lived under a stolen identity for 20 years, illegally voting and obtaining $400,000 in U.S. benefits. Oh, there she is. All right. She was captured on security video at a Massachusetts. Oh, my home state. Why am I not surprised? Wearing an I voted sticker. She's at the bank withdrawing some taxpayer money. All right. All right. So, no, there's no such thing as voter fraud. There's no such thing as voter fraud. No, illegals don't vote in elections. No, the corruption isn't that bad. No, $400,000? Stolen identities? No, it doesn't happen. Well, here we go. It happened. Lina Maria Orovio Hernandez, 59, also obtained, so she's been here since she's been 20 years, so 39 years old. Also obtained welfare benefits, a real ID, and 8 other state IDs. Massachusetts, yay. She allegedly used a stolen ID to submit a fraudulent voter registration in January 2023 and cast a ballot in last year's presidential election. I wonder who she voted for. Prosecutors said she was captured on surveillance camera at a bank wearing an I voted sticker on November 5th, 2024, election day, according to court documents. She is charged with false representation of a social security number, making a false statement in an application for U.S. passports, aggravated identity theft, that's an understatement, receiving stolen government money or property, $400,000 worth, fraudulent voter registration, and fraudulent voting. Orovio Hernandez has been held in federal custody since February when she was charged with identity theft and other offenses. And you can see the affidavit here goes through all of it. I mean, yeah, she's been here for a while. Look at all her ID. Look, Colombians, okay. Visa application. There's her visa application. There's her mass state ID, mass driver's license. She's living the life. She was living the life. But none of that doesn't really happen. You listen to the other news, it's all conspiracy theory. But when also we get one, and then people say, well, it's just one. That's just the one we caught. Because it's hard to catch people when they've been embedded in the system for 20 years, when it's been going on this long. Oh, she got more IDs. There's another driver's license, another learner's permit. At least she was, at least she went through that process. She's like, I want to learn to drive before I get my fake license. At least she was like, I don't want to kill anybody on the road. I want to learn the rules. Let me get my learner's permit. Maybe take a few classes. That's nice of her, isn't it? There's her passport. She's an illegal immigrant and going to get a U.S. passport. There's so many things wrong with what I just said there. I don't even know where to begin. I don't even know where to begin with that. She had a social security number that wasn't hers. Yep, I voted. She's all happy. Massachusetts. Welcome to Massachusetts. Oh, I was so glad the day I left Massachusetts. I was like, I got to get out of here. I got to get out. So, anyways, 2 stupid stories. I was like, really? And you're not going to see that. You won't see this story on anywhere else, right? You don't see this story anywhere else. I doubt it. I doubt it. So, Okay, with that, I do want to get into the Republican tax bill and just the Medicare portions, because there's a lot of controversy around these things. All right, there's a lot of controversy around these Medicare cuts, or all right, Trump says they're not cuts. Fair enough. But I think you have to look into, I think really when he says they're not cuts, you have to understand what he's thinking. And pardon me for trying to understand or try to put myself in his place. They're not cuts to Medicare if they don't affect American citizens. And they're not cuts to Medicare if they don't affect critical services. I think that's sort of his reasoning, but we'll see if that holds up with some of these things that we see and some of the things that we get into. So I actually had to, I have so many notes here. Because this stuff is, you get into it and it's just like, oh boy. All right. We're going to start out with page, and this is the big, beautiful bill, folks. This is the big, beautiful bill. All right. Page 297 of Medicare. And this is the Republic. This is what they just passed. All right. This is the address verification. What does that mean? Why do you have to have address verification? And why do they demand that the states do it on a quarterly basis as opposed to a yearly basis? Why are they demanding that states request that you do it in person for the most part instead of just online? Well, comes to be that it's very easy if you enroll into Medicare. It's very easy to fool the system and say, I'm getting Medicare from the state of Illinois because I'm a citizen of Illinois. And I'm also filing for Medicare from the state of Indiana. Yeah. And so you've got people drawing 2 states worth of Medicare and Medicaid. And I guess this is happening way too much. And so the address verification and these more stringent, strict regulations and rules are to cut down on that. I think that's fair. I think if you're drawing Medicare from one state, you shouldn't be drawing it from anywhere else, right? That money should be given to somebody else who needs it. All right. So it's preventing individuals from simultaneously being enrolled under state plans or multiple states. All right. So they want to create this system, this database that talks to each other as well. Okay. All right. I don't see a problem with that. I mean, yeah, is it a cut? I guess if you're illegally getting it from 2 different places, yeah. I mean, you got away with it this far, but is it really a cut? No, it's just like, you're supposed to get 1 slice of pizza. You have 2. I'm taking that other one away and giving it to the person who's hungry. It's not really cut. It's just being fair about it. So I don't see this as a cut, even though some people would say, well, it's going to cut benefits. To the people who are fraudulent or fraudulently in the system. Okay. So what else is it cutting? Here we go. And I wrote this down because, again, all right, under the Biden administration, you did not have to do in-person interviews for if you're 65 years or older, blind or disabled. All right, I get that. I get why we would say that, why we would do that. But people were taking advantage of it. And they were enrolling fraudulently in the Medicare system without doing it. So just basically all you had to do was submit some pieces of paper online. It's very easy to submit things online and just kind of bullshit your way. It's the government. I mean, have you seen these websites? It's easy to bullshit the government. So the tax bill, this one big beautiful bill, rips out that Biden regulation. It also ends the Biden era regulation that it's okay to use just electronic data. No. Because electronic data can be manipulated very easily. So they said, no, you've got to show up in person for your interview. All right. We'll give you reasonable accommodations. But you also have to bring real paperwork. You can't just bring electronic paperwork that we don't know where it came from, what it is, and who made it. All right. Also, the Biden era says, okay, here we go. Getting rid of applying for other benefits before Medicaid. Okay. So it was okay just to apply for Medicaid before other available benefits. Medicaid was just sort of like a last stop. So Biden's like, yeah, you can apply for everything. Well, Medicaid should cover it. If you're getting what you need from Medicaid, it should cover it. So again, this bill gets rid of that, so you can't double dip. Again, is that a cut? I don't know. Or is it just making the playing field level for everybody who needs it, so Medicare doesn't run out of money? All right. Here's one that I don't agree with. This is where I don't agree with the tax bill. There is a provision in here for prescriptions and home care health. Okay. All right. This whole section is what we've been talking about as I go through screening requirements, preventing, more screening requirements. Okay. All right. It used to be under the Biden administration, you could deduct the cost of your prescription medicine and the cost of home care, right, from your expenses to determine your eligibility. What do I mean by that? Well, some people make too much money to really, there's thresholds, right, for Medicare and Medicaid. So it used to be that they would say, okay, what's your worth? And say you've got a house that's worth $500,000. They might say, well, you get that much worth. You got money. You don't really get that. You don't qualify for that kind of thing. So the Biden administration said, well, part of healthcare costs is if you're stuck in a home and you need at-home care and you need at-home medicine, you can deduct that from that $500,000 level, lowering your value, giving you a little bit more cost. Well, the Republicans said, no, we're getting rid of that. You can't deduct that cost from your expenses. It is just your expenses. You are worth what you're worth. That's a little bit of a gray area for me. I thought maybe it would be okay to leave that because home care is expensive, right? Prescription drugs are expensive. I know Trump's trying to do something about that right now with his executive order. We'll see where that goes. So I was okay with them leaving that in there. Again, is it a cut or is it just a rebalancing? It's up to you to decide. So it's not saying that someone can't have Medicare. It's saying that maybe they don't get as much Medicare as they deserve or they should have. All right. They've gotten rid of okay, here we go. The CHIP Act, and I mean that not by a computer thing, the Child Healthcare Insurance Program. It used to be under the Biden administration that if you missed a premium or a payment, you could still enroll your child in a healthcare program if you met the poverty levels. They've gotten rid of that. You miss a payment, you miss a premium, sorry, we're not helping you out. Bye. Your child doesn't get their healthcare. Again, is it a cut or a rule change? Remove the waiting period to review. Okay, so it used to be that under the Biden administration, even though there's a specific window for you to apply for health care, there was waivers and gray areas and you can still sneak in. Nope, no more. If you miss that window, you don't get your health care. Wait till next year. That's it. Okay? So, again, is it a cut or is it just a rule change? I mean, if you really need your health care, no offense. If you need health care and they say to you, these are the 3 months you have to apply for it, and you don't apply for your health care and your free federal dollars, I don't blame anybody but yourself. I don't blame anybody but you. I don't blame the federal government. They're not there to wait on you. Right? They got shit to do, right? So if they give you 3 to 4 months to say, this is your window, apply for your benefits, and you're like, nah, it'll be fine. And then it's like 4 months after, and you're like, well, I don't have health care, and what do I do? I don't know. When does personal responsibility kick in, I guess? So again, are these, as some of the media is saying, everything that I just said, and I've got more to go, are those cuts in Medicare? Or are we just looking for fairness? Are we looking for balance? Are we looking for rule changes? Are we looking for a little bit more stringent sort of regulation on this? Again, truth is in the eye of the beholder. But we've got lots more to go. Page 303. Oh, yeah, this one was good. Yeah. Page 303 has a certain state requirement. And this is about time coming, okay? This is okay. Modifying certain state requirements for assuring deceased individuals do not remain enrolled. I don't know who would have a problem with this. If you've got a problem with this, I would like to know what exactly is the issue. If the person is dead, why should they still get a check? Because they're getting checks, so somebody else is using that check. Or they're getting a benefit, and someone else is using that benefit. But the person whose name, they're dead. It's basically saying to the states, hey, every quarter, every 3 months, you have to go through your Medicare rolls. You got to go through your registrations and say, is this person alive or is this person dead? No shit, we need a federal tax bill to specifically say that. That's how effed up Medicare is in certain places. We can't even count on the state governments to say, yeah, we know who's alive and who's not. I have no problem with this at all. No problem with this at all. Now, here's where I say it's a cut. All right, here's where we're going to get into something I'm going to say, yeah, this is a cut. It's not a specific cut, but it looks like a cut. It smells like a cut. It feels like a cut. I think it's a cut. Okay. Here we go. FMAP. For those of you who don't know what FMAP is, all right, here we go. It's Federal Medicare Medical Assistance Percentage. What do I mean by that? Federal Medical Assistance Percentage means, okay, every state has to pitch in and chip in a certain percentage of Medicaid. It's not just all the federal government. It can't be. It's too much money. And so right now it's sort of like, okay, it's like 50-50. Let's say you're Alabama. You're getting 50% of the Medicaid money being used by the state of Alabama from the federal government. The state needs to find the other 50%. Sometimes in the poorer states, it's a little less. So like say Alabama is a little bit more of a poor state. Not disparaging Alabama. Love you guys. Been through that state a bunch of times. Awesome food. Say they're doing 30% and the federal government is giving 70%. Okay. Well, if you're giving money to illegal aliens for health care, that 70 is going to shrink dramatically. So now the state is going to have to come up with more. That's one cut to FMAP. And I call it a cut. But is it really a cut? Because if you weren't giving the money to illegal aliens who aren't deserving of the federal taxpayer dollars for the health care, you'd have that money to give to the regular people. So is it really a cut? Again, truth in the eye of the beholder, folks. If you're President Trump, that's not a cut. If you're someone on the Democratic side, they're seeing it as a cut. Which is why we go back 2 weeks ago, there was an article that we read. All right, we talked about it. Gavin Newsom, the standard bearer of the Democratic Party, because let's face it, he's running for president, had to amend his own budget that he's submitting for 2025-2026 to say to all the illegal immigrants, sorry, I know we said we're a sanctuary city. I said we were going to take care of all your health care. But as of the passing of this bill, when we pass it, no more illegal immigrants can get on our health care rolls because we can't afford it. And if you're illegal and you're getting health care from us for free, sorry, it's not going to be free anymore. We're going to have to charge you some money every month, around $100, because they can't afford it. So they're going bankrupt in California because they're trying to give health care to illegal immigrants. Even the governor of California knows it and has to do something about it. Plus, he sees the writing on the wall. You don't think he knew that this was coming in this bill? He sees it and goes, oh, crap. All the money we're getting from the federal government is going to shrink dramatically. And then we're really going to have a problem with healthcare in California. It's really going to be expensive. Again, is it a cut or is it just enforcement of a regulation? Yeah. I think it's an enforcement of a regulation. All right. So here we go. Now, there are other cuts to FMAP. They are going to reduce, the federal government is going to reduce, according to this tax plan, the amount of money in general that they share with the states, whether illegal immigrant or not, regardless of all that. Saying, hey, we were giving 50, we're probably going to give around 25 to 40%, depending on how rich your state is. State of New York, you guys are rich. Illinois, got a lot of money. California, you're supposed to have a lot of money. You don't know why. All right. Even Texas got a lot of money. So they're going to be like, hey, we're not going to be able to give you that much. You're going to have to come up with the rest. Is that a cut? Yeah, that's a cut. Because states don't have a ton of money. I mean, most states don't. Even the rich states don't have a ton of money because they spend it on weird stuff sometimes. But again, is it a cut? Maybe it's just the federal government saying, hey, you need to reprioritize the things you're spending money on. I don't know. Maybe it's just forcing their hand. That's kind of a cut. I think we can all agree that's kind of a cut when you say we're not going to give as much money as we were giving for whatever reason that you're doing it. It's a cut. So I think that one we can chalk up to, it's a cut. We'll say that. All right. Oh, this one I truly don't agree with. I truly don't agree with this one. All right. This is a moratorium that they're placing on a Biden era rule. What was that Biden era rule? Let me actually get it for you. Oh, here we go. Long-term care facilities, things like that, nursing homes. During the Biden administration, they basically said we have 1.2 million residents living in Medicare or Medicaid certified long-term care facilities. And the Biden administration said they need to have a certain amount of nurses, a certain amount of staff in each of these facilities to ensure that the people who are in these facilities that are there for care are getting the proper care. Right? Basically, they're saying there's not enough nurses, people are suffering. All right, healthcare is not being taken care of. And so they said there's a standard, a total nurse staffing standard of 3.48 hours per resident per day. Okay, so you need to look at your staffing levels, your hours, your payroll, say this is how many nurses should be working there at any given time, doctors, whatever, staff, okay? I'm okay with that. I don't think that's a bad rule. I think if you've got a nursing home and it's got too many patients and not enough nurses, that's a recipe for disaster, folks. We've seen that. Well, the one big beautiful bill says, you don't have to abide by that anymore. You do not have to abide by that anymore, even though it's a Medicare and Medicaid assisted long-term care facility. You do not have to abide by those minimum staffing guidelines. I think that's something that could have been left out. I think that's something that should hopefully get cut. I think the Senate will cut that. I don't think the Senate's going to be real too happy about that. So I think during budget reconciliation that will get cut. I see no problem with that. Excuse me. All right. So with that, the last one I got here, page 346. This will make a lot of people happy. This will make a lot of people happy. Well, not everybody. It makes a lot of people happy. Made Trump happy. Made the Republicans happy. All right. Hey, prohibiting federal Medicaid and CHIP funding. No shit. People were using child health care dollars from the federal government for this shit, for transitioning procedures for minors. We were paying for it. So here's a list of the things you cannot use your federal health care dollars on. Castration. I'm glad I'm not paying for castration anymore. Sterilization. Some of this stuff I don't even know what it is, and I don't want to know what it is. Orchiotomy. Scrotoplasty. I can just imagine what that is. Vasectomies. And minors. This is all in minors, folks, by the way. Minors, children. This is, all right? We needed by the way, this is the state that the United States is in at certain things with certain issues. We need a federal tax bill to actually say this. Right? No more federal dollars going to minors for tubal ligation, for hysterectomies, for oophorectomy, for ovarectomies, for medioplasties, clitoroplasty. Wow. There's some words in here I just don't think I should be saying. Reconstruction of the fixed part of the urethra with or without whatever the. I'm gonna let you all read your own stuff here. This is it's got a little too spicy for me. Any placement of fat or artificial implants in the gluteal region. This is what Congress has to spend its time on right now because of some of the crap that we have to deal with. Gonadotropin releasing hormone blockers. So no more puberty blockers being paid for by the federal government. No more testosterone, estrogen, or other androgens. Any of that stuff. Puberty suppression. By the way, we are now one of the only few countries in the world that allows puberty blockers. Most of the places in Europe, they were like all about this. Like years ago, they did studies and they're like, oh shit, this has long-term dangerous effects on people. We have to stop this. And they stopped it. But the United States, they're like, yeah, no, it's fine. We'll keep doing it. All right. But yes, that's why we needed this. Sex chromosome structure, sex steroid hormone production. Like, I know I feel bad for the people who had to write this because I mean, some of these things in here, it's like, oh my God. So yes, no more federal Medicare or Medicaid dollars, no more chip dollars, no more Social Security dollars, no more whatever, right? Going to anything to do with gender transitioning. And that's an elective therapy. That's an elective surgery. You want that, go get it yourself. All right. These tax dollars need to go to people with actual friggin' diseases, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, things like that, stuff to keep people alive. We don't need giving this money to those things. All right. That's all elective. You want to do that when you get out. First of all, for minors, no. You want to be 18. You want to go do whatever you want to do. You want to snip, all that. Fine. Go ahead. I'm fine. I'm a Republican. Go live your life. Do what you want. Don't get me involved. Pay for it yourself. All right. That's fine. But to go to minors? No. We don't let minors drink beer. We don't let minors vote. We don't let most minors drive a car until a certain age. But we're going to let them decide what to cut off. I never really saw the sanity in that. Instead of talking to them, maybe talk to them. Maybe if you want to do something for them and you really do believe it's a psychological issue and all that, maybe get them some therapy and say, hey, and I'm not saying therapy to tell them that they're wrong, but just to talk to them. Just to talk them through. Be like, hey, so what are you thinking? What are you doing? No, none of that. Just immediately we're just like, okay, get them right to surgery. No, talk to them. There's none of that. We missed that it's like a whole middle ground there. Be like, hey, let's talk. Seems like you're struggling with some stuff. Seems like you got some ideas, some notions, some feelings. Let's talk that out. Let's see what we get when we're 18. I don't know. I think that's better than saying we're going to give all this money to this stuff. So yeah, we cut it. And then no money can go to any, if you are a facility that does do this on minors, you will not receive federal dollars. So even if there's a minor that comes there and their parents are like, yeah, we're going to pay for it ourselves, and you're going to do, we're going to, oh, okay. You're that kind of place? Well, we're not going to give you your federal money. You're going to get shortchanged on your stuff. So, yeah, that's in there. That is a large portion of this bill. That is, let's see, we started out where really the transgender stuff takes up 10 pages. 10 pages of a 1,000-page bill. 1% of the tax bill is transgender stuff. That's how crazy we've gotten in this country that we've actually had to legislate this stuff. All right? That there's money, there's tons of money. No, can take care of the people who are dying first. Not the 13 or 12-year-old or 6-year-old or who's been told in school that they need to transition. No, that's not what federal money should be going for. Your parents, and if you're a parent out there and you're a kid and you're on that side and you think that's great, go. Hey, Live your life, right? I don't want to tell you what to do. I don't want you to tell me how to parent. I won't tell you how to parent, but I ain't going to use my tax dollars for it. That's for sure. That's for sure. So, yeah, that is the Medicare portion. So are they cuts? I mean, it goes on for a little bit to talk about certain things like just revising rules, things like that. Can you consider those cuts? I don't know if you can consider, I don't know. Again, it's all in the eye of the beholder. If you're in favor of illegal aliens getting Medicare dollars, yeah, it's a cut. You're getting cut. If you're in favor of illegal aliens not getting social benefits from the government because they're here illegally, then it's not a cut. It's just doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're taking care of American citizens and people who are here with residency, people here on actual visas. If you're concerned about the number of nurses in a nursing home, yeah, that one's kind of like, all right, I guess. I mean, yeah, that's kind of it's a moratorium. Granted, the Biden administration, when they did that, they didn't offer any more dollars to do it. They just said, do it, right? So you got to scramble and figure out where the money's coming from. So is that a cut? I don't know. You could argue that either way. I personally would like to see more nurses in the nursing homes. I think if we're going to offer money to anything, it would probably be that, old people in nursing homes and long-term care facilities. I think that's something we can all probably agree on. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more money in both the defense area and anything. It didn't even mention it in Medicare or Medicaid, and maybe it doesn't need to. I don't know. But I kept looking for a lot more on homeless veterans. I kept looking for more money to be given to those people who served our country. And yeah, maybe they didn't have the best of the best transition out of the military or are suffering from something and can't hold a job. Or I would like to have seen more money in this tax bill, and hopefully maybe that's what the Senate will do. I would like to have seen more money towards that, because I think we only saw about $6 million in the defense portion of the bill towards homelessness. We saw a ton for healthcare for military personnel. It didn't specify whether you were a veteran or an active military at the time, so hopefully some of that goes towards the VA, and takes care of our veterans. I think that's just, we talk about protected classes. Can we just have that conversation right now? We talk about protected classes all the time. Oh, this person's a protected class because of their skin color. This person's a protected class because of their religion. This person's a protected class because of their gender identity. Why isn't veterans a protected class because of all the shit they go through right now? Like, you think about the amount of homeless veterans out there in the United States. You think about the amount of veterans out there with healthcare issues. You think about the amount of veterans out there that are suffering psychological issues because of the wars that they were through, or the battles, or the things that they went through. Why aren't they like one of the most protected classes? It seems like they need protection more than a lot of these people do, right? I mean, if you're an illegal alien, you roll over the border. Why do we consider them a protected class in certain circles? What are we protecting them from? I'm not really sure. Homeless veterans, though, we don't protect them from much. And I think Trump in his first administration did a great job with the VA. I think he's not really focused on the VA the way he was previously, because there's so much other crap going on in the world that even he's got a certain bandwidth, right? But I would like to have seen more money in this bill when it comes to Medicare and Medicaid, or healthcare in general, given to the veterans. But yeah, that is that portion. So you can decide. I think it just depends. Where do you fall politically? Or what is your value system as to what is a cut and what is not? Yes, a lot of these things in this bill will negatively affect lower income families. But the question you need to ask after that, after you read that banner headline, GOP tax bill will negatively affect lower income families, you need to dig in. And that's why we've done 3 parts of this, and there'll be a 4th part because there's some other things I want to talk about with this tax bill. You need to dig in and say, Are these lower income families American citizens or not? If they're American citizens, I think we need to address that and say that's wrong. Folks, there's poor people in the world and there's poor people in our country, and some of them need help. And as much as we don't like to spend our tax dollars on that stuff and we want to spend it on things that we want, at times we have to have a little bit of empathy and say there are poor people out there that are struggling, but for the grace of God, there go I. You know what I'm saying? Most of us all have times of struggle where we might need a little bit of help. Maybe we don't ask for it, it's accept it, and we look back and go, yes, I pulled myself up by my bootstraps. Okay? I've been there with you, right? I've been there with you. But some people can't. And so I think we need to look at the portions of these bill that say, this affects American citizens. And I think that's why you see things like Josh Hawley and you see other senators speaking out about this bill and saying some things need to change. It'll go through budget reconciliation. If you don't know what budget reconciliation is, it's a neat trick. So it's passed the House. It goes to this committee. They kind of work on it here and there and there. But because it's in budget reconciliation, it just needs 51 votes in the Senate to pass. It doesn't need the 60 that it's required if it went through a regular process. Basically, it shuts out the Democrats. The Democrats are just basically shut out. They can't say nothing, do nothing. They can't stop the vote. It's just the way it is. It's called budget reconciliation. And it's something the Democrats have used many, many times before. So if they complain about it now, they're the ones that have been using it. They're the ones that have used it the most that I've seen in my history. So they can complain about it all they want. I don't care. But that is the Medicare section of the bill. And with that, all right. It's been awesome. Love being back here. Oh, you know what? We have pop culture today. I do want to spend 5 minutes on pop culture today. Normally, we're just all politics and a little bit of pop culture here and there. But I wasn't around yesterday because I was out. I was out having fun. I was at the movies all day long. All day long, baby. I was at the movies. Yeah, I saw these two movies with my wife, and we had a blast. Listen, just quick out of the reaction, just so for everybody out there that likes movies and things like that and wants to see something that's like, family friendly. One of the best live action Disney movies I've ever seen is this Lilo and Stitch. No BS in it, just straight up, let's have some fun. The message of family. That's the message. Family. It's like, oh, Disney's doing a movie about family and family men just sticking together and taking care of each other. How awesome is that? And it was hilarious. The little girl who plays Lilo does a great job. Everybody did a great job. It was funny. It was well done, well acted. The animation was great. Just laughed. It was cool. It was a good film. It's one of the best live action Disney films. And I don't know about in the United States, but here in Mexico, they love Stitch. There were lines out the door just to get tickets at every theater that we passed. People were showing up with their Stitch pillows, their Stitch shirts. I don't know what it is in Mexico, what it is that Stitch has over here, but he's like a rock star god in Mexico. People showing up in full Stitch outfits to watch the movie. It was crazy. So if it sells out in the United States like it sells out here in Mexico, this thing's going to make $1 billion. All right. Then we took a nice lunch. Oh, by the way, you're getting screwed in the United States when it comes to movies and paying for a movie. I'm in the comment section. If you want to tell me how much a general movie ticket goes for on a Friday afternoon or Friday night, let me know. But last time I checked in the United States, it was between $12 and $16, depending where you are. For 240 pesos, basically that's $12. $12. That's 2 tickets to see a movie. Really nice theater, really nice leather reclining chairs, really nice. Plus I get for free 2 hot dogs, really good hot dogs, a big bucket of popcorn, and 2 large drinks, 2 large sodas, 2 large Cokes, whatever, for $12. That's what I pay down here. So whatever you're paying up there, you guys are getting screwed. And then we turn around and for $12, we get the same deal to go see the new Mission Impossible film. And it was great. Long. It is long. It's almost 3 hours long. But there are scenes in it that last there's one scene that lasts a half hour. I don't think I breathed. I don't think I let out a breath during that whole scene. It's incredible. The stunt work that they do. It's a little all over the place here and there, but I mean, there's a lot going on. It's a very involved story. You have to see the first one to understand the second one. A lot of great callbacks to the rest of the whole series, the whole franchise. A lot of cool, cameos, Easter eggs, just homages to everything that the series has done. And I've been a fan of it since 1996 when I saw the first one in theaters during that summer. And I think I think they capped off the franchise great. There's some stunts in there that just blow my mind. Tom Cruise is a movie star. He's one of the few movie stars left, if not the only movie star left. So it's a long movie, but it's a good movie. It's a fun movie. A lot of wild stuff in it, and stuff to just make you just go, just make you hold your breath, like I said. So if you're looking for a good movie, either one. If you're looking for a family movie, Lilo and Stitch. If you're looking for action, you're looking for fun, you're looking to cap off that whole Mission Impossible series, Final Reckoning does its job. So that's my little pop culture rant for today. I'll have more on that later when we do Late Night with the Gringo, but I did want to get that in there because I know people are probably wondering, are these movies worth seeing today? So, but we'll catch you later. But with that, I am going to go on and get on out of here and call it an afternoon until later on tonight. Make sure you check out the Daily Gringo, where I take the live streams and make them into evergreen videos, so we can, in case you missed it, you just want to learn about one certain topic or talk about one certain topic, please go ahead and check out the Daily Gringo. Go ahead and subscribe over there. I really appreciate everybody. I really want to say thank you also to everybody for the last live stream that we had. One of the most successful live streams, I think the most successful live stream we've ever had in our life, when we talked about South Africa and the Oval Office visit. So that was awesome. I really appreciated everybody joining in and having a comment. But with that, I'm going to get out of here. I hope everybody has a great weekend. I'll see them streaming video games, see them streaming Late Night with the Gringo. With that, I am still your reluctant Gringo. Salut, a huevo. I'm out of here, everybody. Appreciate you. Bye.